Welcome to Math Tutoring with Mr. J. McCoy. Today we are going to be solving some equations. You should have your math notebook in front of you, pencil ready to go. I highly suggest at the top of your page you write the title, Solving Equations. Now I'm going to write one example of solving equations. And in the margin, I'm going to have you record the steps as we solve this problem. Because many times when we come on a new equation, we forget what those steps are. If we write down the steps, oftentimes that'll help us as we tackle a new problem. So for those of you who aren't sure, the general feeling of when we are solving equations, yes, I want you to write this down in your notebook. Please write this down. Solving equations requires us to use opposite operations to move terms. I will talk about what terms are to opposite sides of the equal sign. Okay, this is the general rule of thumb. Using opposite operations to go to the opposite side of the equal sign. Please write this down. And remember, if at any time I am going too fast for you to write this down, you could always take a screenshot. Like it's sitting right now. You could just take a screenshot real fast. Solving equations requires us to use opposite operations to move terms to the opposite side of the equal sign. All right, let's go ahead and get started with problem, the first example. If you have not finished writing it down, go ahead and take a quick screenshot, or you can copy it down from a neighbor. Okay, here's our problem for today. Now, you start by writing down the problem. 2x plus 4 plus x equals 7x minus 16. Now, a term is each of these items. Okay? A term can be either a variable or a constant. Variable, that's anytime you have a letter. Okay, oftentimes in algebra we use x and y. We also have a constant. Numbers by themselves, whether it's a positive or negative, are known as constants. Okay, you don't need to label this down, but I am making sure that you remember all the way back to like step 32 when it was talking about this. Now this problem has 5 terms in it. The first step you do is you write it down. Okay, that goes without saying. But our true step number 1 is going to be identify like terms. So next to this problem on the right hand margin or the left hand margin, doesn't matter, I want you to write step 1. Identify like terms. Now I want you to notice in red, I have highlighted the variable x. I have the coefficient 2 and then the variable x. I have 1x. You see the invisible 1? It's right there in front of the x. And we have 7x. Okay? I have all the variables in red. You have to recognize that like terms, you identify your variables and your constants. I have a constant positive 4 and a constant negative 16. Okay? First, we identify like terms because that tells us what we're going to combine. Step 2 is going to be combine the like terms that are on the same side. See, I notice in this problem that 2x and 1x are on the left-hand side of this equation. So my first step is going to be to combine that using the signs. if I have 2x and 1x, that makes 3x on the left. This has not changed. The 4 did not change. And the minus 16 did not change. Please make sure that you have our equation written down. After we combine like terms on the same side, I'm left with 3x plus 4 equals 7x minus 16. Step number 3. I am going to combine like terms on opposite sides using opposite operations. See, before I did same side, same operation. But now I have opposite sides. See, here's the equal sign. I've got to jump the bridge, okay? And when I'm going across the equal sign, I have to do the opposite. Now, as a point of strategy, I need to think, these are both positive. The opposite of positive is negative. That means that the opposite of add is subtract. Let's see, am I going to be better off to do 7 minus 3x or 3x minus 7x? See, you get to choose which one you want to do. I personally would rather minus 3x, the opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. I would rather move this over there because that is going to give me a positive number. I would rather have that positive number than deal with negatives. So this 4 is still here, this 16 is still here, and the equal sign is still here. Take a minute to copy those notes. Minus 3x from both sides, that's called the commutative property of equality. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. What you do to one, you do to all. Okay? And I'm left with the equation 4 equals 4x minus 16. But I'm not done yet because I have not combined all the like terms on opposite sides. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Now that I've moved the 3x to the right, I'm going to move the 16, the negative 16, to the other side because I want to separate those two. The opposite of negative 16 is add 16. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. This gives me a 0. That's how we move it. We made a 0 pair. And I'm left with 20 equals 4x. Now, mathematics is the study of patterns. And solving equations follows a pattern. Okay? These systems of rules and mathematical laws govern how we do this. Now, there's a little bit of maneuverability in which one you do first, as long as you follow these laws. Like, you could have moved the negative 16 first. That would have been fine. You could have moved, instead of the 3x, you could have moved the 7x, but it's a point of strategy here. Okay? Now, we've completed step number 3. Let's go ahead and look at step number 4. Now, I kind of cleaned this up a little bit, so let's go ahead and look at step number 4. Isolate the variable. Isolate means to get by itself. If you are isolated, you are by yourself. Okay? So we are going to isolate the variable. Well, I noticed that this says 4 times x. So if I want to get x by itself, I have to get rid of that 4 times. To get rid of 4 times, I do the opposite of 4 times. That is a divide by 4. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. Now, when I divide by 4, 4 divided by 4 is the big giant 1. That's what made it disappear and move to the other side. And that leaves me with an isolated x. X is by itself. That's awesome. And on my other side, I have 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now, many students don't like 5 equals x. That looks backwards to many of us. So once again, the commutative property of equality says you can just rewrite that. And we could say x equals 5. We can just rewrite it. Okay? And that order makes us feel better because x is 5. Now this is the solution to this problem. If you took this problem and every time you saw x and you put in the number 5, we can double check that we got this answer right. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 4 plus 5 will equal 7 times 5 is 35 minus 16. Let's see. 35 minus 16 is 19. 10 plus 4 plus 5 is 19. Yep, I got it right. 19 is 19. I just double checked my solution and I verified that I am right. That's one of the things that I love about mathematics is we can check our answer before we even know that we're done. Like, we can know for sure that we're right. That's really cool about mathematics. Now, this was a 4-step equation that covers almost all of 8th grade equations. If you can do these 4 steps, you understand the majority of equations in 8th grade. But you might ask, Mr. McCoy, why do we need to learn how to solve equations? Well, in the 8th grade alone, we have problems that are called linear pairs of angles. Do you remember this problem where you have a line that has an angle on it and it says like 3x plus 2 equals 2x plus 8? And you had to be like, what do I do with that? Well, in this problem, you would say 3x plus 2 plus 2x plus 8 equals, in this problem, it's a line, so it equals 180 degrees. These are problems inside geometry that are setting you up for high school, okay? That's a problem that you might see if you were on linear pairs of angles. If you were doing the Pythagorean theorem, if you were doing the Pythagorean theorem, you're doing a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and you're solving that equation based on the Pythagorean theorem. What I'm setting you up for today is solving systems of equations. Now, some of you aren't here yet, but it comes right after the slope chapter. I want you to notice that we're dealing with x's and y's. Now, a student is on this problem today, and so I have this just for them, okay? But I do want you, even if you're not here, to write this down, okay? I want you to write down the word elimination. Write down the word elimination. Because even if you're not there yet, this is going to be helpful for when you get there. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember Mr. McCoy talking about this. Elimination. I want you to write down the equation. 6x minus 4y equals 12. Negative 6x plus y equals negative 3. Don't worry about this yet. Write down the word elimination and the 2 equations. Now, I want you to notice that I have 2 equations because I have 2 variables. Okay, this is an important thing to understand. you have two equations because you have two variables. If you had three variables, you would need three equations to solve. Okay? Now, here is the basis of this problem. Everybody put your pencil down. My favorite was when I was actually teaching students live, and I would say that, and you would hear all the Ticonderogas hit the desk. Oh, I love that sound. It's the sound of students following directions. And what we're going to do, you are watching right now, this is like adding multi-digit numbers using place value. You are thinking of the variables as a place value. I want you to notice if I treated this like a giant addition problem and I look down, notice I can eliminate one of the variables because I see a zero pair. 6 minus 6 is 0. The x's had been eliminated. And therefore, I am left with 4y, negative 4y, negative 4y plus 1y is going to give me negative 3y equals 12 minus 3 is 9. Pick up your pencils and draw this addition line underneath. Draw arrows to remind ourselves that we're looking down. Draw a circle around 6x minus 6x. Put a slash through it to remind yourself that it cancels out. 0 pairs in the elimination method. And then we're going to combine the y's. Negative 4y plus y equals negative 3y. 12 minus 3 is 9. Now I want you to notice that we're right back to our previous problem of going through our steps. Let's see. Identifying like terms. Nope. There's only 2 terms here. None of them are alike. Do I need to combine any on the same side? No. Do I need to combine any on the opposite sides? No. So my last step is use opposite operations to isolate the variable. Oh, I need to get rid of that negative 3 times y. To get rid of negative 3 times, I do division. Division. Now, on the left, that's a big giant 1. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. Y equals negative 3. Okay? And this gives me the portion of this solution that is this. I know that y is going to be negative 3. Because xy, ordered pair, I know that's negative 3. And so I have part of my solution. Now I'm going to use that skill of checking my answer to find x. 6x minus 4. And now I'm going to use the value of y, negative 3, equals 12. Guys, I make mistakes all the time, and sometimes I get to the end and I catch it. Sometimes I don't catch it till, you're halfway through, and that's okay. 6x. Let's see, I need to multiply. Negative 4 times negative 3 is going to be positive 12. Equals 12. Now I need to go back to those opposite operations. Well, I've got to combine like terms, 12 and 12. I have to use the opposite operation of subtraction to make a 0 pair. What I do to one side, I do to both sides. Don't worry, 0 is a number 2. Don't discriminate against it. Now I need to get rid of the 6. How do I get rid of a multiply by 6? I divide by 6. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. 0 divided by 6 is 0. All right. I found my answer, 0, negative 3. Now, solving equations requires a knowledge of how numbers interact. That's why I want to emphasize to you that mathematics is not just add, subtract, multiply, divide. It is a relationship of how numbers are interacting. If we know how those numbers are interacting, we can better predict the future. And that's the key here. That's the whole point of 8th grade math, is to be able to predict the future. This type of problem, systems of equations, this is a method that people predict the future. It happens in business. It happens in your personal life. It happens in education. And these areas are, how do we predict the future when you have two variables and we want to know when they are the same. Okay? Now, I apologize for my mistake, but it happens. And you guys need to know that we all make mistakes. And how we learn to overcome those mistakes defines us. Okay? If you just say, oh, I got it wrong, I'm so bad at math. Well, you need to learn that we're all bad at math sometimes, and we can all make improvements. So, make sure you hang on to your notes. Make sure that anytime you run into an equation, you utilize your notebook to continue to solve.